who's got a question, raise your hand and we'll come to you. Microphone going to someone over here in the corner. Go ahead.
Hi, yeah, can you comment on the connection made with Columbine? It seems so not comparable to the kinds of things that, you know, these kids were doing. Was it just kind of a convenient defense, or, I mean, that was so extreme and so not in any way related to these kinds of relatively minor.
The interesting thing about Columbine was 2 years before Columbine, juvenile crime was actually going down. And then Columbine hit, and school-based arrests started going up. Matter of fact, in Pennsylvania alone, school-based arrests went up by 300%, and juvenile crime was actually coming down. So Columbine, we believe, had a real effect. And the parents were afraid that, my gosh, you know, my kid could go to school and not come back from school. And so they demanded, teachers, parents demanded action. And we reacted, and I think that's what happened. And I think it's pretty substantiated in the data that we have that since Columbine, arrests within the system, school-based arrests, zero tolerance programs are alive and well all around the country post-Columbine.
So, microphone here.
Yes, hi. My name is Miss Tally Watson, and I'm a Baltimore City Department of Social Services social worker. And I must say, this is my first time in seeing this, but I read the book. I read a couple pages of the book. I am so upset. I'm angry. I mean, it's just like this judge. I thought about the African proverb, it takes a village to raise a child. What does this judge, he's the village? I mean, what happened to the communities, the educationers? I mean, everybody surrounding these children before it gets to him, and he just locked these children up. And I read the book on a couple pages about one child got locked up because of throwing on a steak. I just thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just thank you for bringing this enlightenment up. I just thank, and I thank the mother. Who you have my deepest sympathy. You do. And I just want to thank you.
Yes, I have a mic here.
Go ahead.
And like you, Charlie, I'm a little nervous. I thank you all. It's a beautiful story, and it's very, very, very important that these types of stories get put out there. Michelle Alexander's recent book on the new Jim Crow also exposes this, and that figure that 95% is for nonviolent crime. By telling this message, from the Obama administration to rulings on stop and frisk, people are coming out and making vulnerable children's voices be heard so that these things don't happen and shouldn't happen in our country. So thank you for making more exposure.
There's a hand up back there. We'll get you first, and then we'll get a microphone up top.
I just wondered how you got the participation of the two judges. Truly.
Well, in fact, we weren't going to even make the movie unless we can get access to the judges, because we really felt like, how are we going to tell this story of these kids and have people interested in seeing it? Because we really felt like no one really cares about any films that have some sort of bigger picture in it. And you know, I love documentary films and made a number of them, and yet we felt like, you know, it was more interesting to us to find out what was behind the mask of the villains. And so we approached the judges, who I did not know before this, and it took a while to be able to get access to each of them. And I simply said, look, you know, we're legitimate filmmakers, and we want to tell the story literally from both sides. There's got to be another side too, and I want to hear what it is, and whatever it is, and that was that. And it took time for it to sink in, because Chivarella said, you know, they couldn't talk to us because they were going through the federal investigation and the potential trial, and so he would talk to us after his lawyers, you know, after it was done. His lawyers wouldn't let him talk, and then he decided he wasn't going to tell his lawyers, and then agreed to be filmed. And the same thing with Conahan as well. And then none of the characters knew, not the kids, the families, or the judges, or anyone in the film knew who else we were talking to, so that we could sort of distill, the story from there. And that was it, really.
Denial is a very interesting place, isn't it? Thank you so much.
Microphone, to the corner there.
I'm sorry, she stole my question, so I'm going to move on to another one. Hi, Robert. I'm here with the contingency from northeastern Pennsylvania as well. And we lived through this real time, so it was very haunting to go back. And Robert, you saw this unfolding as it happened, it appears, with the filmmaking that you did, with the incredible moments that you captured for us. And my question is, did you see the bromance between Chivarella and Conahan unfold while you were doing this? Because it kind of seems like they turned on each other.
Yeah, it did. It was pretty remarkable, because there in the beginning, now we had an agreement that they weren't to tell each other that we were filming each other, but I'm not sure that they kept that agreement, and I never asked, and we tried to keep our integrity and ethics on the line. And so I do know, though, that there was a lot of admiration in the beginning for the two of them when we would have small talk before the interview or maybe during the interview. But that started to subside the closer it got to the actual trial, and then when Conahan pled guilty, then that was when Chivarella was felt betrayed.
We'll get you first, and then I know that there's a question up top too.
I'm nervous as well. I actually work in the juvenile justice system with an amazing agency, New York Foundling, who does the MST, FFT, and MTFC for alternative to placement. I just wanted to know who this audience was and how do we make sure the right people are seeing this film?
Well, I can tell you one thing, that we have screened the film in private circumstances. This is the first public screening where anybody could come. We've screened it all around the country to audiences, regular moviegoers under confidentiality agreements they had to sign, and advocacy organizations as well. And we did a market research screening here in New York. And the people that were brought into the theater based on the scandal and say, hey, you want to see this film about a scandal? And they were regular moviegoers. 2/3 of those people left theaters saying, wait a minute, this film is about what we're doing to kids. And so it's one thing to make a film that advocates can celebrate and feel great about, but if no one but advocates see it, then frankly, nothing will change. So our hope is that this film will have an appeal to a broader audience, a regular moviegoing audience, that will be interested in the scandal and entertained by the scandal, and yet discover what we're doing to children in this country. And that's the way audiences have responded when they've left. They've been more outraged about what are we doing to kids.
Question up top, I think you have a microphone.
Hi, my name is Aurora Rashid. I work in public high schools. I teach a course to high school seniors in New York City. And three comments. First of all, I think you did a very even-handed job of presenting the stories from as many sides as possible. I want to say that young people are being criminalized. You mentioned this in the film. Behavior that used to just get suspension or even a note home is now resulting in handcuffing students. One of the schools I work in, there are police always present in the school. The kids go through metal detectors, and we have sweeps in the school. So the children already creating attitudes for themselves, their own identities, as being, look at us, see how we're being criminalized. And I think one of the important takeaways from the film that American citizens really need to pay attention to is not only that these are individuals, to focus on individual cases like the judges, but that the whole criminal justice system, there's a push for extreme privatization of prisons. So as more and more prisons are being privatized, there is incentive to arrest young people as well as adults on minor charges because somebody is making a profit. And if citizens don't stop this, it's going to get worse. And people in the Black community have already been the victims of this. And as people outside of the stereotypical Black kids in the ghetto start to experience this, then perhaps you will see how this is really a growing problem in this country.
Thank you for your comment. Robert, that does beg the question about the privatization of prisons, and I wonder, you know, what your reflections are on that, having spent all this time in this case.
Well, I think one might first go to that and say, you know, that privatization of prisons is one of the reasons this is all happening, and I think it's a contributing factor. I personally feel that society is a bigger contributing factor because I think that we demand consequences for every single thing that anyone does, both adult or juveniles. And I think that in particular, you know, when we get into schools, the schools in particular don't know how to deal with a kid that has a lot of spark, a kid that has, you know, just a lot of energy, and perhaps all of these things scare society. And I really believe that that in connection with privatization really makes for a really bad situation. On top of that, most juvenile court proceedings are held behind closed doors in private, so that we don't know what happens behind those doors. And the idea of it was to protect the children, so that, you know, they protect their reputations. But that in itself can provide a place where corruption could occur, and especially if there's money involved. And again, when you have a society that says, lock them up, throw away the key, they do an adult crime, they should do adult time. When you have all of that out there in society, it makes for a pretty tough recipe for something like this to happen.